Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here. And of course, we're playing Hearts of Iron 4 with the Road to 56 mod. Now, I'm sort of asking chat here. We're recording this live on JAB. Don't know JAB exactly. Wasn't sure what JAP was either, but hello, Lubber 3. Good to have you here. Fear. Why do... let me adjust the mic thingy here. If you heard that. Why do social media companies and companies like Google fear people who disagree with them? Why do they fear us? Because I disagree with them. And I'm not just talking about people with pitchforks that want to attack them because, they let in social media, the Facebook data breaches or something. That's, of course, you understand customers that are upset with you. I'm talking about those who have political disagreements. Why do they fear us? They wouldn't, if they didn't fear us, they wouldn't be trying to block us, demonetize us, deplatforming us. Why do they fear us? Well, one aspect, of course, they own Krispy Kreme and such. Okay, I've heard of that for sure. I may have even heard of JAB, but don't have a good reference point for it. Talking about the aftermaths of World War II and Nazi associations of somebody in the past now, because most of those people are dead. Few still around, but I'm getting to the point that it's now the past. Now, one aspect of why they fear us is that we're being successful, and they don't want to see the other side successful. I get that point, but why is it that they fear us? Now, one of the things that either is being deplatformed or being on YouTube, being put into a digital ghetto, and yes, I'm using that with malice of forethought here with a World War II game. Ghetto, of course, in America, it's often associated with maybe black neighborhoods, but really it's traditional areas in Europe in which Jews were allowed to live in Christian majority countries that the Nazis put on, or continue to sort of do, creating, of course, the Warsaw Ghetto. And they use that name with a malice of forethought too, of course. But into a digital ghetto, saying that this is bad information. Now, there's the anti-vax movement, and we can see the dangers of an anti-vaccine movement in vaccines, partially because my cousin, she's a doctor, so it's been a few years now, is talking about some flu vaccines and how that you get a flu shot, and the reason you get a flu shot, like maybe every year, especially if you're a bit older, I'm not that old yet, and probably a lot of the viewers here aren't that old, is that the vaccine that you get the flu shot for is only good for certain strands of flu. And so if they get the guess wrong, because they sort of are monitoring the strains of flu that are coming out, and then they create a vaccine that will help for 3 or 4 strains of the flu that are coming out. And then you get that. But if they guess sort of wrong, this happened a few years ago, that the strain that they vaccinate you for isn't the main one that's out there spreading around, so it's ineffective. It's still equally as normally effective against the one strain that, or 2 or 3 strains or whatever, that it was designed for, but the other strains of the flu, it isn't effective against. So it's not that the shot isn't effective against what it was designed for, it's just not effective against everything. Well, and again, I'm not even anywhere near her status of understanding these things. But my understanding with a lot of other vaccines against whether it's considered childhood or other, because we ask questions about World War II and the immediate history, and that is because the New World Order, and no one wants in that order, or no one in that order wants to question nothing about the order, and that I'm not guessing or questioning. Oh yeah, I understand. I understand where you're coming from. They banned a lot of videos about Hitler, even some of the educational ones, I believe. Yes, and this is sort of why I'm too small to really notice, but I did go through at least a 6-month period, those of you who don't know, maybe new here, of literally every video being demonetized as I was posting it, including one that I specifically made, and I was very careful about what I said. That was just a Merry Christmas wishing video to viewers on the channel, and that got demonetized. And I recorded it, I'm recording my desktop at the time, so I have proof of that. And so it had nothing controversial in it. Now I'm just down to one game that gets demonetized, and that's Strategic Command. Every time I post it, it gets demonetized, and a few rare other things. Now, all of these things, except for a very small handful of videos, and I'm handful meaning less than 5, over the well more than 1,000 videos. I think maybe 2,000 videos now. I don't know. Someone could go look at the count. But that were later remonetized. So it's not that I really was being naughty. It just somehow the algorithm thinks I'm being naughty because I'm mentioning Hitler and Nazis and other things. But obviously we're talking about it in World War II context. So and so part of the idea with vaccines, for whatever it may be, is that although we have a general thing like the measles or something, there can be different strains within it, and the more that it's out there, the more it can mutate. And so that even if people have been vaccinated against some of these things, they're not necessarily vaccinated against all strains of it. And so if it gets out in humans enough, again, and then it starts running around, then even vaccinated people can get sick from it. Still, if it's enough of a different strain variant on vaccines. As soon as they see the flag and hear Hitler, YouTube just control deletes your money. Yes, that's basically what's going on. You still get limited commercials. You still get limited money, but it's maybe a fraction, in that it's like 10% or 1% of what you could be getting. But yeah. And really bad stuff, they've completely quarantined. And so, yeah, so if you have anti-vaccination videos that are putting out, hey, thanks for hosting, and if you haven't already, please follow the channel. So if you're putting out, and you could theoretically say, if you import it from, say, I don't know, China, a vaccine that is contaminated with something, again, I don't know what, you could have a bad vaccine that could give you problems. And maybe even good vaccines may have a chance of giving some people, people have correlated, not, but not corroborated, but correlation does not equal well, won't go there. The rise in autism in people, with people being vaccinated, and I don't know that there's any now that I've gone down the road, it's hard to get out of any connection made. Any connection made between, hard connection made being vaccines and, say, autism in children, but just any hard connection in it. So correlation isn't necessarily valid science. But even if it does possibly give that, just the chances if you don't vaccinate your children, it's going to be much, much worse to get a much, much worse disease at a much higher percentage. So that you may have a... thanks, Arno. 2,700 videos. Yes. So, I mean, literally there are like 5 or 6, maybe, somewhere in that have remained demonetized. One was me talking about and I know probably the word in it, the R of Nanjing. Not trying to get this video demonetized. And so sometimes I've gotten onto sensitive topics, and I can see maybe where that purely on a, we don't want to advertise in that type of video, that they have a legit case. But so there are a few out of all of those videos that have remained demonetized. So even by YouTube's own admission, they were wrong in demonetizing me. And yes, whether it's they really have gotten into, you want money just plays as soon as you can talk about content on YouTube, will eat it up. It might even go on trending page. Well, maybe, but I'm not that easily bought. Yes, I need to make money as a profession doing this. No, I'm not willing to praise the Soviet Union to get that. So I'm all for vaccines. They're whatever real downsides are totally outweighed by their positive things. So I can understand that they can see the danger. Danger is spreading maybe misinformation, bad information, or whatever, or just overhyping fear of possibly real information and causing danger to, physical danger to society. And it's sort of like, I guess another one would be Tide Pods challenge thing, stupid teenagers. Again, why teenagers should not be allowed to vote. Yes, we either are or will be or have been a teenager, and we shouldn't have been allowed to vote at 16 years old. And I'm even questioning the 18 years old. And the 18-year-old, really, that was just because we were drafting 18-year-olds into Vietnam, and the Democrats thought they could get the youth vote by, vote for us, we'll get you out of Vietnam, and you won't have to be drafted in the Army. So they pushed that there. So now they just want impressionable teenagers. Because if you're old enough to be in the Army and be forced to be in the Army, and they do have a point, if you're old enough to be forced to be in the Army, you should have a say. They got a point there. But, so, some videos should either be demonetized or put in special categories. And so when we can see like a Tide's Pod Challenge thing, should they be banned from YouTube? Well, maybe you're making a cautionary tale. You're getting clips of kids doing stupid things and then showing the negative effects of it and talking about don't be an idiot, don't be stupid kind of things. And it would be really good to have that video out there. Or it could be just some stupid influencer who's trying to get more views on her channel or something. Either way, so that there's, I'm not a complete free speech absolutist, but I'm generally going down that route. So, but we can understand some of that. But why do you fear, which is another disinformation campaign that's going on, flat earthers? Okay, there are some people, I want to click over to this city, New York, that live in this city, that were born here, and have never left New York. There's a lot to do there. Especially the island of Manhattan. It's a fairly small place. But yeah, there are people that have literally never left. And I'm not talking that, hey, they're 10 years old and never left. They're 50, 60 years old and they've never physically left New York. No, or if they have, it's just a little teeny bit. And so there are people that live there or live in the mountains somewhere or whatever and have never really gone very far. And so if they can buy, because they see tall buildings and everything looks flat, They can maybe buy into somebody's weird conspiracy. Just to clarify, I think most 90% of flat earthers are just trolling us, because they'll even see using one of their web pages or brochures. There's flat Earth societies all around the globe. Excuse me, I'm gonna get something to drink here probably in a moment. But flat earthers all around the globe, and yeah, this is a special talking episode. We'll get to playing the game here soon in another episode. This is fear. Why do they fear us? And I'm going about this in a long way, I know, but this is my tendency, and probably a bad one, explaining my thought processes. So I think most of them, whether they want to admit it to themselves even or not, believe that the earth is round. But so maybe they can come up with some weird theories to try to say that the earth is flat. And people who don't travel much might actually really buy into it. But how does that hurt if there's some Parisians who literally never left Paris, even to go into the suburbs? They've never been out to Versailles or anything else. They've just lived in the heart of Paris all their life. How does it hurt them to think that the world is flat? I can't see how it. And then there is what if they teach their children that the earth is flat? Well, their children also go to school, and they'll probably get the other information, and the children may follow their parents' inclination, or they may go with, hey, the earth is round, because I'm not a fool like my parents, or parent, or whatever. So how does that really hurt society? It doesn't hurt society, in my contention, because, all of the men on Columbus's ship that was attempting to sail around the world, he failed, of course, knew the earth was round, because all sailors know the earth is round, because you see the roundness of the earth as you're looking at the horizon out at sea. You can do that if you live in a coastal area. So they just didn't know how big the earth was. Back in Ptolemaic Egypt, I think it was Ptolemaic Egypt, there was one person who used sort of, measuring of shadows and mathematics and whatnot to determine how big the earth was. I think he was off considerably, but there were different estimations on. Hey, Asa, it's good to see you. We're talking about fear. Herodotus. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. See, I'm somewhat edumacated. Don't remember everything. So, they knew it was round. I mean, people living in a medieval village somewhere might not know or believe the earth was flat, and somehow the sun went around a flat earth somehow. And yeah, but how did that hurt a medieval villager who never went anywhere? And so they knew the earth was round. It was just how around was it? And as you went out there, were you going to get lost in because the Pacific is much larger than the Atlantic, and if there was no big Americas, because they sort of kind of knew that there was, Iceland, Greenland, and up there, they had some information on that. And so they knew that there was probably some islands out somewhere. Like they knew Japan, often as Cathay, were islands off of Asia. And they sort of knew of the Indonesian islands. And that's sort of why they started calling this India, and the Indians that they were meeting, the brown-skinned people. Because although they were trying to find China and Japan, they thought they had already sailed too far around the earth. But had the Americas not been there, yeah, Columbus would have been doomed to starve out at sea, because they would have gone too far, and it was just too far. So they didn't know how big Earth was around. So why try to ghetto off flat earthers? And I've been thinking about some of this. Maybe just as if we convince everybody that wrong think, flat earth, anti-vax, should be ghettoed off, we can then do other things. And how does that? Well, if your parents teach you about flat earth society and raise you as that way, you have wrong think, and we got to sort of correct this and suppress this. And I was sort of thinking, well, how does that hurt anybody? Well, they're teaching their children this wrong think. And then I go, what other wrong think do parents teach their children commonly? Oh, religious views, like anti-abortion is what they would look at, but maybe eventually that you believe in a god or gods, or you believe in something other than socialism as the god of society. So parents do wrong think that religion can be put into wrong think pigeonholes, allowed to exist, but not allowed to be, have a televangelist. Are there televangelists on YouTube, that make YouTube videos? I don't know. I have not looked, quite honestly. And yes, Azad, I'm glad you're here. The memes about Indian families are true. Okay, I don't necessarily know the memes about Indian families, but I believe you. A lot of those cultural memes have a large grain of truth in them, of whatever culture you're looking at, and another sort of wrong think that has become inappropriate to share. But so they fear the wrong think. Now, so just the idea that something that is totally observable fact that, or totally, observable fact, I should say, fact that the earth is round is, and people can either try to convince themselves to believe it or get educated into believing it. Yes, okay. And some of that can hurt society. We can admit that, like I say, Tide Pods challenge or some shit like that. But sociological, and it's not just political, but it's also sociological and political type view, wrong think that they want to suppress. Why do they want to suppress the intellectual dark web? Including people that are generally on the left that have rejected the new think on the left. Gender is a sociological construct. Well, you can be whatever gender you want to be. Now, I'm not going to people that have a birth defect or people that have had surgery. I don't necessarily know how to categorize them. But otherwise, we can tell your gender. It's what the hell you were born with. Misgendering somebody is to calling them something that they're not gender. If a guy wants to dress up as a woman, fine, but that doesn't make him a woman. I am not saying people shouldn't cross-dress. I'm not saying people can't be polite to them and call them miss or something. But that doesn't mean that they are a woman. Now, why? And, is this political? Well, politics is the process to determine who gets what, where, when, and how. Hey, thanks for following the channel. Communism not working. Absolutely. So, oh yes, we'll get to some of that, but I want to get through this episode of fear. That's another fear, Iran. But so we're looking at this. So, as Ari alluded to, with communism not equals working, is that whether it's people like arch conservative Ben Shapiro or Tim Pool on the left, who's now starting to be hit just within the last week, or out here where I live, Dave Rubin, who's a gay, former Democrat, now more of a gay libertarian, but definitely somewhat on the left there, is that or Jordan Peterson, I'm using some of the famous people here, are Sargon of Akkad. All of these people, what they're saying makes sense. The left's rhetoric, the left's theories make sense in some sort of theoretical world, but all things work in theory because it's a theory and it's all constructed in a viewpoint that within this construct it works, but it doesn't necessarily work in reality. So You might believe that if you do a stream on Sunday as well as on Twitch, you should be able to become affiliate. You can support you a lot more. I understand, Ari. Partially it's, hey, Tippet. Partially it's because people like Tippet and Azads, who though can't necessarily show up on Sundays, is Twitch isn't easily available as many places or the same audience that you reach as on YouTube. So I need to do a YouTube as well, live stream. Still talking with people, including you good people out here, as to what other days than Saturday and Sunday, and what time during the day that I should maybe stream either on Twitch or YouTube to do other things. But reach more of an audience and increase the time. So they fear us because we make sense, because we're working, because we're successful, because we poke holes in their castles in the sky of what reality should be. That is why they fear us, because we are at least more correct than them. Because Ben Shapiro's views and Dave Rubin's views are very different, actually. But they have some common areas of agreement, but they have different views. And so it's not, and this is where it's different than fascism or communism or whatever, in which it's a dogmatic belief that you must hold in agreement. Well, was it your wedding? Very good, Azads. Friday, late stream, possibly. Okay, didn't get married. You're not the one. Yes, okay. So that, and yeah, Ari was very right with that, is that they are trying to, and this is one thing that I really, and I get the idea of, hey, let's be kind to people with problems. Transgendered people are by definition people with problems. It could be psychological problems, and people used to be categorized in all the medical journals as a psychological problem, but they themselves admit that they have a problem and that they mentally believe that their body is the wrong gender for their mind. So whether that's something that can be through psychoanalysis or some other way, quote unquote, cured, not saying it can be or should be, but that has been a view. But they themselves will say, hey, I'm in the wrong body. I'm, okay. So there are people with problems, and there are people with, especially if you go to, the Middle East, are people that may not be accepted within society. So I get that these are people with problems and you want to be kind to them. But where I am vehemently against this sort of new think that you can pick your gender out of the sky, how you're feeling one day, is because once you establish that language doesn't mean anything, a man is whatever you say a man is, then you can do things like work makes us free. Freedom is slavery. War is peace. And wanna be birds, bro. Not accepting this. Preparing for an MBA. Oh, cool. No. Very good for your achievement there. It's a top half of your class or more. That's very good. MBA, I presume, is Master Bachelors of Arts. That's sort of it's a step below being a doctorate. Yeah, a Master's in Business Administration. Oh, okay. Okay, the different MBA is I'm come from a more political science history field, so it would be a Master's in Bachelor of Arts. War is so terrible, else we should grow too fond of it. Yes, Robert E. Lee. Very, very credible quote. But so the idea is once you can start redefining something that's so basic as to male and female, then you can redefine anything else in society. What is good and what is bad in society. And you can then redefine the earth as flat if you so wish to. And so, and, you know, so that is why I am more concerned about this new trend in being able to redefine people's genders. A little less worried about wanting to redefine somebody's name. Is it Bruce Jenner? Well, Bruce Jenner won all the Olympics. Or is it Caitlyn Jenner, the guy who's had some surgery? Well, people change their names legally all the time, so I'm fine with changing your name designation. I'm trying to think of, like Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. The boxer. If you're too young and don't know who I'm talking about. So that, if you want to change your name, that's fine, because I can change my name to Gamer1745. Not legally, but that's my screen name. So I'm fine with that. It's that, is Bruce Jenner now a woman? Well, maybe if he's had enough surgery, but I don't know, go to somebody else who hasn't had any surgery, male or female. I don't think you should be able to redefine their gender, because I think it is a fact. And when you start redefining these things, it can lead to very, very bad places. I'm more worried about that than a lot of the other leftist policies in America that people actually scream about a lot more. Because, see, people in America, at least, and I think in Britain and other Western countries, generally want to, outside of New York City, which is a shithole. I know a lot of people in New York get offended by it, but they think their own city is a shithole too, so they just don't want to be reminded of it. Not that LA is becoming a shithole. Oh, it's becoming a shithole, literally. And New York or San Francisco is becoming a literal shithole, not a figurative one, meaning people are shitting all over the streets. But so, people are, oh, well, let's just go with this new think on gender. And they're not that worried about it. Democrats, Republicans, people in the middle, schools, let's not harm these vulnerable kids who are confused about their genders, whether it's just a passing phase or whatever. Let's just humor them. They think it's fine, and they want to battle over tax rates or border walls or all these other things that they all feel more important about. But once you get to the idea that big tech, big media, big government can redefine what facts are on the ground, that you go from illegal aliens to undocumented immigrants to undocumented new Americans that should vote. New Americans are better than old Americans. Old Americans should not vote. So if you're an American citizen, you should not vote in America. Only undocumented new Americans should vote in America. And you think, oh, gamer, you're being overly extreme, overly nutty. No, I think that that is where it would go. So this is why I am more worried about this misgendering problems than I'm worried about Democrats or leftists wanting to redistribute wealth or have other negative laws. And this gets to, will this, because YouTube listens to everything I say, and if it understands me correctly, or sometimes incorrectly, it will demonetize me. And what's more important to me right now than how much money it makes, it will, when it's demonetized, should it recommend this video to somebody? Well, maybe if it's always clicking like on my videos, it may recommend that because it's figured out that that person really likes these bad videos. But everybody else that hasn't ever seen one of my videos before, or maybe just briefly clicked on one once, that will never get recommended to new people because this is a problematic video for some reason, because it's been demonetized. And that is more my worry than how much money it makes, because there are other ways to make money than advertising on YouTube, but I can't do those other ways if I don't have a large audience. And yes, that's how it affects me personally. So yeah, that is, I guess, this video gone long enough on fear and why they fear us and why they should fear us, because they are trying to reorganize society, and why it is a danger to us. So that will probably be the label of this episode: fear. Special episode, no gameplay, so that those who watch later can know that if they don't have to listen through all this BS if all they wanted to do was have some good Hearts of Iron gameplay. If you haven't already, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel to support divergent voices, and along that viewpoint, please share on some other platform, whether it's Reddit, Twitch, Facebook, any other shares on any other formats, because it helps get the visibility of this out. And of course, I would love your comments on any or all of this. So thank you so much. See you next time for actually more Hearts of Iron.